everybody. Welcome back to our week 2 video lesson. We're going to go ahead and jump right in and get started with a little finger warm-up that's also going to practice our finger numbers that we've been learning. So we're going to go ahead and start with our right hand on the keyboard. And if you can find a C, which you should be a pro at by now, find a C with your right hand thumb. And I want you to play fingers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's do it together. Ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great job. Try it one more time. A little faster, maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent. Now I want you to go 1, 3, 1, 3. Ready? 1, 3, 1, 3. Now we're going to do 2, 4, 2, 4. 2, 4, 2, 4. And then we're going to do 3, 5, 3, 5. Excellent. Now we're going to do those backwards. 5, 3, 5, 3. 2, 4, 2, 4. 3, 1, 3, 1. Excellent job. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our left hand. And we're going to start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So we're going to go down, then up with the left hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good job. Let's try it a little faster. Okay, then we're going to do 1, 3, 1, 3. 2, 4, 2, 4. 3, 5, 3, 5. Great, and then we're going to reverse it and go back up. 5, 3, 5, 3. 2, 4, 2, 4. 3, 1, 3, 1. Excellent job, and you can repeat that as many times as you need for your practice. And then we're going to go ahead and do a couple of flashcards for some rhythm and reading exercises. So what I'd like for you to do is I'm going to show the flashcard here, and you can pause the video and play through the melody portions that we have in the top portion of the card here. So the first line is a right hand melody exercise, and it shows us that we're going to be playing right hand group of 3, and then exactly which finger numbers you're going to play and the note values. Do the same thing for the left hand. And then you're going to do the rhythm exercise here at the bottom, and you can clap this, tap this, count out loud as much as you'd like, and you can try this at a variety of tempos until you feel like you've really got it perfect. So I'm going to show you a few of these. With each one, pause the video, practice each line, and then we'll come back and move on to what's next. Here's number 1. Here's number 2. Here's number 3. And in this one, we're moving on to letter names. So it's going to show you which finger to put on which letter. And then here's the very last one. Okay, so go ahead and make sure that you've practiced each one of those, and then we'll join back together to go ahead and take a look in our books. We're going to begin today on page 19 with Merrily We Roll Along. All right, so we're going to start off our practice of this piece by looking up at the top as usual. We're going to follow these practice directions that our book gives us, and notice our starting hand position, which has our right hand on a group of C, D, E, and our left hand on a group of C, D, E. And if we go ahead and look down at our music, we have our first line, which starts with our right hand, and then the second line is with our left hand. And as we learned on our last page, we have here Can you tell me if these are blocked or broken intervals that we have? Yes, they're blocked intervals, which means we play those notes together at the exact same time. So we're going to start out by tapping or clapping and counting the rhythm of this piece aloud. So we're going to start from the very beginning, and you can tap, clap, and count aloud. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent job. So now we're going to go ahead and find our starting hand position. Left hand finger 3 on a C, and then D and E. Right hand finger 1 on C, and D and E. And we're going to play it the first time in the middle of the piano here and say the finger numbers out loud. And when we get to those blocked intervals, I'm just going to say together, together as we do that, okay? So let's go ahead and try it from the very beginning. 1, 2, ready, go. 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, together, together. 2, 2, 2, 3, together, together. Left hand. 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. Together, together. 2, 2, 1, 2, 3, and hold. Excellent job. So I would like for you to practice this one more time, 2 more times actually. You're going to play it once more, saying the letter names out loud. So saying E, D, C, D, E, together, together. And then you're going to also practice it while playing it and counting the rhythms out loud. So go ahead and pause the video and practice the piece both of those ways until you feel like you have it going pretty well. And then we're going to try playing it with the accompaniment. All right, so if you're ready to go, we're going to go ahead and try it with our teacher part. And I'll count you in. 1, 2, ready, go. Excellent job. So the next thing that we're going to do, you can practice that a few times until you feel like you have it mastered, is we're going to try playing this piece on a few different hand placements. So the one that you can start with is that is suggested right down here is playing the piece now on groups of 3 black keys. And you're going to follow along with the finger numbers. And the other thing that you're going to follow along with is what we call the contour. So that is as the notes go up and down, sort of the shapes of the lines. And that can tell us a lot of information about, are we moving up, are we moving down, are our notes staying the same? And you can do that even if you're playing in a different hand position. So go ahead and pause the video and practice this song, Merrily We Roll Along, on groups of 3 black keys. Right, and once you've done that, I want you to choose your own adventure. And you're going to choose either a G position or an F position to play this piece in next. So to find that hand placement, we're going to call what we have at the very top of the page a C position, because the lowest note that either hand plays is a C. So we have our right hand thumb on C, our left hand finger 3 on C. And so we're just gonna move those fingers, our right hand finger 1, our left hand finger 3, up to either a G or an F. If you're gonna do it in either one, you're also welcome to do both if you're an overachiever. But I want you to go ahead and find that hand position for G or for F. And I want you to try playing the piece in that position. And note, what can you use on the page that's already there, and what do you have to do differently? Which elements can't you use to help you find your notes? So I'll let you think about that for a second, and then I'll tell you what it is. So our rhythms stay the exact same if we're using a different hand placement or hand position, and our finger numbers also stay the exact same. So we can use those finger numbers, we can use our same rhythms, and that contour that we talked about. As we watch the notes go up and down, the direction of that stays exactly the same, regardless of which hand placement or hand position we use. All right, so go ahead and practice all of those super fun ways to play Merrily We Roll Along, and then we will go ahead and move on to our next page. All right, so the next page that we're going to be looking at is page 20, talking about playing FGAB groups on the piano. So if we locate our groups of 3 black keys, and then we look for the 4 white keys underneath that group of 3. That is F, G, A, B. So what we're going to go ahead and start with is taking our left hand. We're going to take fingers 5, 4, 3, 2, and play those groups of F, G, A, B, starting in the middle, going to the bottom, and then going back to the top. So just like this, all together. 1, 2, ready, go. Excellent. We're going to do the exact same thing with the right hand, going up and then back down. Ready, go. Back down. Perfect. An important note that I forgot to mention last time is that if you have a keyboard with fewer notes, you can do exactly the same things that we're doing here, just use fewer repetitions of those groups. So just go as high as you can go and then go back down, but keep everything else exactly the same. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to do an interval warm-up with F and A. So we're going to start with our left hand, fingers 1 and 3, and you're going to play F or A, F together, A, F together. So let's go ahead and try that all together, going down, and then we're going to come back up. Ready, go. A, F together, A, F together, A, F together, back up, A, F together, back up, A, F together. Great job. Now we're going to do the same thing with our right hand. F, A together, F, A together. Okay, ready, go. F, A together, jump up. F, A together, jump up. F, A together, jump up. F, A together, jump up, back down. F, A together, back down. F, A together, jump down. F, A together. Excellent job. So now I'd like for you to try both of those warm-ups. Now using fingers 2 and 4. So going A, F, and then going back up with your right hand. But this time you're going to use fingers 2 and 4 on both hands. So go ahead and pause and try those warm-ups with those finger numbers. Okay, so let's go ahead and flip the page. And if you chose the F position for Merrily We Roll Along, you're in luck because that's exactly what is on this next page. Whenever we play a song with a new group of notes, a different group of notes than we did the first time, we call that transposition. So this is Merrily We Roll Along, transposed to an F position. And in this, we are also learning about measures. And this is very, very simple. Any space between these lines called bar lines, this is a measure, this is a measure, this is a measure, this is a measure. And it really does exactly what it says it does. It just measures our bits of music into groups of beats. We'll learn about that a little bit later on, but for our purposes right now, our measures are going to be 4 beats. So our bar lines are going to cut off every 4 beats. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at our Merrily We Roll Along in F. So if you've already practiced this one, you can just do it one more time. But this should be pretty easy. It should be pretty easy even if you did the other one because it's simple enough. So we're going to start out by finding that hand position at the top. And we're going to go ahead and skip saying finger numbers and go straight into play letter names as we say this out loud. So we're going to start with our right hand, start with our left hand on the second line. 1, 2, ready, go. A, G, F, G, A, together, together. G, G, hold. A, together, together. Left hand. A, G, F, G, A, together, together. G, G, A, G, F. Okay, excellent job. So, how many measures do we have in Merrily We Roll Along? I want you to count for a second. It's 8 measures total. And you'll find that in a lot of our pieces, we're going to have even numbers. And a lot of times we can form them into groups of 2s and groups of 4s. So let's go ahead and turn the page and see what we have next. So for our pentascale warm-up that we have on page 22, we're going to be talking about the idea of seconds. So we discussed intervals, and basically that's the distance between 2 notes. And we use the number that tells us how many note names we have between these 2 notes. So here we're going to be talking about seconds. So the interval of a second moves up or down to the very next key or the very next letter name. So from C to D is a second because it's 2 letter names. D to E is a second because it's 2 letter names. E, F, F, G, G, A, also going down. A, G, G, F, F, E, E, D, etc. Those are all seconds. So when we play scales or a lot of warm-up activities, we are moving in seconds. So we're playing one note to the very next note. We're playing that note and its neighbors. And when we talk about pentascales, which is our C pentascale warm-up that we have here, a pentascale is a 5-note scale. So we're going to be playing 5 intervals of a second as we play this scale. So we are going to go ahead and find our C pentascale hand placement. And this is going to be a very important thing for us to learn is this hand position here, where we have our left hand finger 5 on C and our right hand finger 1 on C as well. Right, so we're going to go ahead and find that hand position, that C pentascale hand placement for both hands. Right hand thumb on C, left hand pinky on C. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and begin with our right hand, and then we're going to play our left hand on the second line, and then we're going to repeat the whole thing one more time. Playing forte the first time, piano the second time. And we're going to follow their practice recommendation and begin by playing and saying our finger numbers out loud. Right? 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On the next line, left hand go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and repeat. 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, left hand go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Excellent job. So I'd like for you to practice it exactly that way, playing the next time saying finger numbers out loud, and then the next time playing with saying the counts out loud. And then after that, your next step is to play it on 2 higher groups of C, D, E, F, G, so in a high C pentascale position, and then the low C pentascale position. So go through and practice it all of those ways, pause the video, and come back and we'll talk about doing another transposition activity for our pentascale. All right, so our next activity is going to be to transpose our pentascale to G and A position. So all of this is going to mean, very simply, that we're going to take that starting hand position with our thumb of our right hand on C and our pinky of our left hand on C, and we're just going to move that up to G to begin with. And we're going to go ahead and do our activity the exact same. Remember, our counts are the same, our finger numbers are the same, and the directions that the notes move up and down exactly the same. So let's go ahead and try it together in G. 1, 2, ready, go. C. Go. Excellent. So now you're going to take that hand position that you just had and move it up just to the very next note, to A. So right hand thumb on A, left hand pinky on A. And let's go ahead and try that one and notice how it sounds a little bit different. Ready, go. And left hand go. Excellent job. So you can see that depending on where we start, we get a little bit of a different sound. C and G pentascales sound really similar, and A pentascale sounds a little bit different, and that is because of the pattern of the notes can create a little bit of a different sound, and we'll learn a little bit more about that as we go along in our course. So a little bonus exploration activity is to try doing a pentascale starting on every white key. And notice which ones sound the same, which ones sound different, and which ones sound kind of bizarre. And that will be an excellent way to practice your pentascale fingerings as well. Let's go ahead and turn over to page 23. And we're going to be looking at warming up with our thirds. So when we're talking about our seconds and our warm-ups doing pentascales, when we talk about doing our thirds, so that is skipping over one key. So from C to E is the third, from D to F is a third, from E to G, and going back down. And that's because we span 3 letter names, okay? Thirds can also be called skips. Seconds can also be called steps. And when we do our warm up with thirds through here, we're going to start in the exact same C pentascale hand position. So right hand thumb on C, left hand pinky on C, left hand thumb will be on G. So we're going to go through this one, and I would like for you to first tap out the rhythm and count that aloud. So pause the video and tap and count the rhythm. And then join me back here, and we're going to play through this. First line is right hand, the second line is left hand, and we're going to repeat the second time. So let's go ahead and give this a try after you have tapped out the counting, and then we're going to do this together on finger numbers. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 3, 5, 5, 3, 1, 1, 1, 3, 3, 5, and hold it. 1, 3, 5, 5, 3, 1, 1, 1, 3, 3, 5, and then we're going to repeat really quiet. Ready, go. 1, 3, 5, 5, 3, 1, 1, 1, 3, 3, 5, and hold it. 1, 3, 5, 5, 3, 1, 1, 1, 3, 3, 5, and hold. Excellent job. So now I would like for you to pause the video and practice next playing our warm-up with thirds, saying letter names, and then playing and counting at the same time. Once you have finished practicing it those ways, I want you to try playing it high on the keyboard and then low on the keyboard and note the differences of sound. So go ahead and pause the video, practice it all of those ways, and then come back and we're going to transpose. So we're going to go ahead and try first in G. So we're going to take right hand thumb on G, left hand pinky on G, and we're going to do this exact same warm-up. I'm going to say the letter names as we play this and doing it exactly the same way. Ready, go. G, B, D, D, B, G, 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 B, B, D, and hold left hand, D, B, G, G, B, D, 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 B, B, G. Excellent job. So then we're going to go ahead and move up one step. Right hand thumb on A, left hand pinky on A, and play this in an A position. And notice that difference in sound when we use this pentascale position. Ready, go. A, C, E, E, C, A, C, C, E, and left hand go. E, C, A, C, B, E, E, job with these two warm-ups. So you can practice this one also. Try starting it on every white key and note the differences in sound. Which ones are similar, which ones are different, and which ones are bizarre. And that will be a great way to practice playing thirds. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to page 24 and 25 to play Ode to Joy, which I'm sure most of you are very familiar with. And it's always excellent to learn with songs that are familiar because then our ear is an excellent way to check if we're doing the right thing or not. So looking at the very top of the page, this is a great piece to introduce the concept of musical form. The form is just the structure, it's the plan. And what it really points out is where is the music the same and where is it different? So they use a few things through here called A prime, which is the A with the little 1 beside it, and B. So in this piece, we look at the first line and we're going to call that A because it's the very first thing that we do. If we look at the second line, they're calling that A prime because it's, if we look at the note names, they're almost exactly identical until we get to that very last measure. So it's not a totally new thing, it's just slightly different. So we add that little caveat. If we look at the third line on the top of page, the second page, page 25, that's completely different. It is a totally different melody and totally different notes than we have on the first two. So that's why we'll call that B. It's completely different, it's something totally new. And then if we look at the very bottom, we have mostly the same notes as we did at the beginning. It starts almost exactly the same, and that ending is the very same as the second line. What have we changed? We're doing the hands together there, so they're playing the same notes. So the structure of this would be A prime, B, A prime, because it's kind of showing us the areas where the music is similar versus where it's different. So just a little interesting point to look at when you see your pieces and you can analyze where are things similar and where are they different. So also a great thing to go ahead and circle would be to circle the repeated notes throughout this piece because there's quite a lot of them, and also circle the right hand and left hand markings as well as the place where we play hands together so that you're on track for where to use which hand, especially the left hand note at the very end of that third line, the top of page 25. That's a really easy one to skip, so make sure you go ahead and circle that. Then I would like for you to go through and say the note names out loud. You can think them in your head if you're around other people, but going through and just noting the note names would be an excellent prep to playing this piece. Then we're going to go ahead and start in our C pentascale position. So see if you can find it all by yourself, and then I'll remind you. It's right there, so it's pretty easy to find. But just as a reminder, right hand thumb on C, left hand pinky on C. So we're going to go ahead and go through, and I'll say the finger numbers out loud the first time, and then you will practice saying the letter names out loud. Okay. 1, 2, ready, go. 3, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh, I'm sorry. I started with the wrong finger number. We're going to start over again. Whoops, technical difficulties. Ready, go. 3, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 2, left hand, 3, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 4, 5, 5. job. So go ahead and practice that one a few more times until you feel very comfortable with it. Try saying it with the letter names or even with the counts as you're practicing, and then come back and join for the teacher duet. All right, so let's go ahead and try this together. So for your part to sound the best, make sure that you're playing very high on the keyboard. All right, and I will count us in together. 1, 2, ready, go. You should be on the second line. Now to page 25. Beautiful job. All right, so for continuing your practice on this piece, I would love for you to transpose this to a G pentascale position, which is provided for you right here at the bottom of your page, and also an A pentascale position. And a creative activity would be to, for the A position, come up with a title that matches the sound of it in an A position, because it's not going to sound like Ode to Joy. Joy is not the emotion that we would associate with how this sounds in an A position. So go ahead and try practicing it in those two different pentascales, and then join me back for our next page. So for your practice assignment this week, I want you to keep working on all of the pages from today and continue to perfect the pieces that you need to work on. As usual, in your weekly guide document, you can use the practice log chart that's provided if that's helpful for you. I'd also like for you to look at page 26, which is our study in seconds and thirds for right hand and for left hand. So this is just a great warm-up activity. This would be a great way to introduce your practice each day playing this. This is another one that you can try starting on any note. You can try it starting on C, D, E, F, G, as many different combinations as you'd like, and note the differences. Then I'd like for you to look over at page 28 and 29. This is going to be our orientation to reading on the staff. So this is just covering the information and some of the basics about reading music and writing music on the staff on both of these pages. This is always intimidating for people when they start to learn music. Maybe some of you know this already and it's a little bit more familiar, and maybe some of you are brand new. This is not hard. Do not be intimidated. I want you to go ahead and just look at it first this week. So just look at it, just read it over without even having to try to play pieces yet. And familiarize yourself with the idea of lines and spaces, the grand staff, right hand, left hand, bass clef and treble clef, and the orderings of the notes. Something that is very important and may be potentially tragic to some of you is that I despise the acronyms that many of you know for Every Good Boy Does Fine, or FACE, or Elvis Goes Boogie Down the Freeway is one that I've heard. If you are familiar with those, I would recommend finding a hypnotist who can try to make you forget them. And if you can't do that, just stop using them immediately. I have very strong feelings about this, but it's the alphabet, not even the whole alphabet, only 7 letters of the alphabet, is far more simple than creating a mnemonic device. If you notice, look over here. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It just repeats over and over again. And the only function of putting these things on the lines is you can look at this as like a measuring stick, just to show you the distance between 2 different notes without having to put the actual note name in there. That's really all that it is, and that's why it was developed centuries ago when we began writing music this way. It's to show us the distances and also to show us the difference between, we can write an A very high on the keyboard and an A very low on the keyboard, and they have 2 separate ways of being written, which is really helpful instead of having to write in the note name and then say this should be low or high. So that is my speech for today about looking at these pages. So I encourage you, if you're totally unfamiliar, just look and read over. If you are a little bit familiar and you maybe need to unlearn some of your previous thoughts about this, go ahead and just try to look at it with some new eyes. So for your worksheets and listening for this week, in terms of your worksheet activities, I'm going to have 2 things that are pretty much identical to what you did last week. And then I also would like for you to fill out the activities here on page 27 of your workbook. So we have at the top review of seconds and thirds, a little rhythm tapping exercise, and then here at the bottom we have a black key improvisation. So I'm going to record now the accompaniment part that goes underneath this for you. What you're going to do is you're simply going to follow the instructions here, and you're going to create a piece on the spot. So all you have to do is just play on the black keys while I play my part, and you can play both hands at the same time, just one hand. The only rule is that it has to be black keys. I encourage you to listen maybe to the accompaniment a little bit to get an idea of what kinds of sounds or rhythms you would like to add to this improvisation. And then there's no right or wrong. This is a time for you to be creative. So here we go. So listen a few times. I'll play this accompaniment through several times, and you can play your improvisation over. Excellent job. And again, you're welcome to listen to that as many times as you would like and create multiple improvisations over that duet part. So for your listening this week, it's a little bit of a pun because you're going to be learning about the composer Liszt. Who's a Romantic era composer and one of the really game-changing composers for piano. So in your weekly guide document, you'll have a little bit of information about Liszt, and then also a listening list. How many times can I use that pun? It's infinite. A little bit of a listening list for Liszt on YouTube of some of his more famous pieces, and I also wanted to include some of his more obscure works. As you'll read about very briefly in his little bio, he was a very unique composer in that he started with extremely mainstream work at the time that he lived. And later in his life as a composer, he wrote things that were extremely unique and really, really different. And actually, things that you wouldn't hear from composers for another 20 or 30 years. So he was really ahead of his time later in his life. And unfortunately, many of those pieces aren't as showy as some of his really popular ones, so some of them aren't as well known. So, as always, you'll listen to each of them, choose or try to identify maybe 5 traits of Liszt's music, compare to Chopin, who we listened to last week, see how they're similar or different. They did know each other, but they had a lot of different styles around writing piano music. And then choose which piece is your favorite and why. And as always, I encourage you to do more research and find more pieces that you enjoy.